I am your host, Benjamin Wheeler, and I want to thank you all for joining for our 5-year Pinkerton's Ghost celebration stream. Uh, it's fantastic. I am so thankful for all the years that we've had today. I'm joined today. Hold on, it's not picking up Discord. This is very difficult. Trying to get things chained together, especially since Restream is not gentle on bad connections. Uh, it's all right. It's all right. Let me try something else. Sorry about this, folks. I thought something would work through screen share, but it just doesn't work like that at all. Uh, also share audio. There we go. Share activity. I'm really sorry, folks. This will take a second. Yeah. Sorry about this, folks. It'll just be a second. I hope. So it's saying I can connect it with the audio. Share. But it doesn't have the permissions. Which makes sense because I don't like my things talking to each other. I'm going to be right back. Sorry, folks. I'll just a second. All right. Uh, let's see. Can you gentlemen hear me? Can you in Restream?
I can hear you.
Excellent. All right, I'm gonna disconnect from Discord. All right. Uh, so so I'm joined today by Ken and Anthony Marquetta, Ken Dickinson and Anthony Marquetta, the co-writers of Pinkerton's Ghosts. Uh, honestly, this thing couldn't be done without both of them. Ken has been our audio editor for years, and he's done a fantastic job making my bass chesty rumble uh, eh, very hearable and pleasant on the ears of our wonderful viewers. And of course, Anthony Marquetta is fantastic moral support. The heart of the team. Um, couldn't do it without him. Couldn't do it without him. No, he's also a writer and actor, and he's been invaluable helping me edit both my own work and everyone else's. Uh,
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw, indeed. Uh, Unfortunately, it looks like Ken just keeps disappearing. Um, that's okay. That's all right. For those who are here, thank you for being here. What we're going to do is now show off some of the things we're working on. But the big thing, of course, being uh, uh, the Thrones of Hades animatic, which debuted uh, this Halloween. Which we had our 5 year anniversary sometime in September, but really this is the real marker for it. There are a lot of shows that don't even make it a year, but we have pushed through and persevered and made it to 5 whole years, 150-ish episodes, certainly, and more in the tank being prepared as we speak. Backers of our Subscribe Star will enjoy uh, the next episode featuring Jack Morrow as he's wandering through the forest searching for a strange um, magical event that manipulated the very stars themselves. Then, of course, we'll have more episodes from Ken Dickinson and Anthony Marquetta after, as well as my own work. Uh, where afterwards Viet Vo attempts to strike again. But no, without further ado, I'm going to set up the Thrones of Hades animatic so we can watch it together and enjoy the hard work that characters like Jojo Fraga, Anthony Marquetta, and myself put into it. Uh, Unable to access screen sharing. What in the world did I do to myself that I can't access anything? Uh, this is the first time this has hurt me. But no, Anthony, do you mind setting the scene while I work on this?
Uh, you're setting up the animatic?
Yeah. Just set the scene for the animatic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this was an adaptation of the climactic scene of season 2 of the anime, really, right? Or of anime. Wow, I wish. Uh, that would be pretty cool. But of season 2 of the show. So at this point in the story, we have Jack Morrow has been searching for his mother who has disappeared, and he has tracked her down to the underworld of Greek myth, which is implied to be just a sort of one area of hell, right? A particular, even maybe not even an area. It's hard to say. Maybe even just a particular way of seeing hell, right? Ruled by Hades and Persephone. So Jack goes down to rescue his mother and is tricked by Hades into getting trapped in the underworld. This causes all of the organizations on Earth to go into DEFCON 5, and Control calms everybody down by saying, give me. I forget. I forget if we actually put this. A lot of this, by the way, is backstory that didn't make it into the show, but it was something like this. Control said, "Give me 3 days, and I'll send my men down. And if we don't get if we don't get both of them back, and restore the natural order, then you can then you can handle it." So Sean and Jim have been tasked to rescue Jack Morrow and his mother, who is known only as Mother Morrow. Of course, they're trying to rescue both because in the world of Pinkerton's Ghost, there is very much a no man left behind ethos. Then we're explaining the backstory.
Fantastic. I apologize if I'm very loud here. I will mute my microphone.
Just do your best. You could stay muted in the background until you have something to say so that there's no feedback, but we're all waiting with bated breath to hear your glorious insights.
Can you not hear me now?
I can hear you. Yes. Yeah, we could hear you. It's just kind of lots of background noise, but that is what it is, so it's fine. Anyway, we were going through the backstory of the animatic. So Sean and Jim have gone into hell to rescue Jack and his mother from Hades' clutches. And after a tense negotiation where Sean reveals that the Pinkertons have gotten the heart of Kronos, Hades finally comes to an agreement with them. One of them may leave, but the other must drink from a cup of water from the river Styx and thus be trapped forever. And that is where the animatic picks up.
Yep. Anyway, without further ado, let's listen in. Watch animatic that we've spent, your money on, our own time and effort. It's just fantastic. All right.
Absolutely.
Of course,
It's amazing.
thank you, Ken. It is. It's fantastic. Uh, I'm always happy to get stuff like this. As much as I'm happy to uh, work with you guys, and how do I want to put it? Just take care of this our fans in this way. With this great stuff. Season 2, season finale, was a culmination of a lot of work from all of us. Themes that we work with. Um, even though we're very much a part of the sort of the themes don't matter kind of setup. Um, but it does matter. The lines woven through our story arcs, uh, do come in with the season finales, or at least they should. Uh, for Jack Morrow, it was sort of his anger and grief and getting stuck in the past in a way. Uh, his mother left him to on a fake mission to uh, save him from some unmentioned doom. In the beginning of season 2, and now it comes full circle. And then, of course, I'll bring the results of this back again for the season 3 finale, where um, Anthony's character Sean Russo is having his day in the limelight. Um, where the lessons learned are reinforced, and at the same time, uh, Ken's character Jim Donovan is having his own lessons happen to him. Um, it's one of those things where things come like Ouroboros, like full circle. And even though we do strive to make every episode, even in the case of a two-parter to a point, flow into one stand alone. But the ideas and the character motivations still flow into each other. Uh, Ken, since your time is a little more limited, what are your thoughts with the character development, the animatic, just Pinkerton's Ghost in general for the 5 years you've worked with it?
I've been so privileged this I think this Ghost has been a fantastic part of it. I think you said something really interesting and very accurate. That Jim's lessons happen to him. He doesn't learn his lesson. It just kind of happens. That's a very, very appropriate accidental way of putting it. It is a little disappointing. So our actress who played Mother Morrow in this hospital, she was unable to be here this week because this is the wedding. She's getting married this Friday. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, is incredibly busy today. Did not have the time to be part of this. But she did an amazing job voicing Mother Morrow in the miniseries that we filmed for that. I was very, very impressed.
Oh
Based
yeah.
on oh yeah. And based on the conversation we had, it was that yep, the current season, but also upcoming seasons. I'm really excited and how it's going to get woven in with Sean, especially Jack's character. It's going to be, I think you guys listen, going to be quite a treat. I would like to apologize, by the way. I know things been talking about this. I got married about 6 weeks ago, and my life has been a delightfully hectic and crazy ever since. Forgive me, friends, for my constant absence from Pinkerton's Ghost. I've already in Ben's latest episode, and also mine, and we're going to be working on the next few of those episodes.
Oh yeah. Uh, yeah. I didn't know she got married. The voice actress for Mother Mara got married this week. Congratulations to her. Uh,
This upcoming Friday.
this upcoming Friday. As in get married this week. I got you.
This is
Yeah, but she did a good job. With the demands of the character. It was amusing because the first time it's like, oh, is it some sort of anime thing? No, absolutely not. This is, not some ooh woo, ara ara is probably the more accurate sound an older woman makes in Japan, kind of thing. It's no, this is kind of a, um, if she had a habitual sin, it would be a despair. She's that kind of person. Um, uh,
Mother Morrow, right? Not talking about Selena.
Mother Morrow, not Selena. So that's a different kind of voice, and it's we try to keep things away from the cutesy, in many regards. Uh, in many situations of like that, it's like no, this isn't cute fun time or whatever. It's you know things are going bad time. Hmm.
And honestly, I think that brings is one of the things that makes this series feel more honest. Like, our characters are not. Nobody escapes the show unscathed. It's basically. I've not been shy about using Jim as kind of punching bag to deal with trauma. So hopefully some of the fun of that giant forward and doesn't actually become a giant misery fest. I never want to make things unnaturally cheerful.
Oh yeah, it's no, it never really comes through. And I'm always careful to edit around it. Uh, just because these things are fairly delicate in a way. You don't ever want to lose your audience just because they're like, this is just this guy. But then again, I might be overestimating not all audiences. Our audience is very high class. But sometimes you see like one of the current things is Windigoon released a mouth-washing video. And man, oh man, is almost all the discussion about it toxic as all get out. Uh, those fans are clearly rabid, insane, lunatics, in 1,000 different ways, shapes, and forms. Uh, Probably haven't even played the game. I certainly haven't, and I'm not going to. Uh, but it's no, just you look at different fan bases. I'm very proud of ours.
Fully.
Just like I'm proud of the work we do on it. Um, it's been difficult the last few months for us in different ways. The things that we're doing, events that have happened in our lives, but we're still striving for it. And now I think as we kind of go into the real season 3, I think we're just gonna hit height after height. Um, all the episodes so far have been pretty good. Uh, I've been taking over some more writing duties, and I think I've hit the mark for those. Um, and the voice acting that you guys have been doing so far has just been great. Um, Anthony's episode especially, but I know you'll do a great job, Ken.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Or have done a great job. It's I don't. The tenses are hard when things are unreleased.
No, I do what you meant.
Uh, yeah. So looking back at sort of what we've done for Pinkerton's Ghosts, why don't we go around the table and talk about kind of the best things that we've done, story arcs or characters we've used to really that we think really showed off what we can do. Uh, Anthony, do you want to start?
Sure. Favorite story arcs? That's a good question. Well, to be honest, the season 2 finale, I think, was really good on all of our parts. In terms of just an overall show story arc, like I think it hit. It was fun to write. It was fun to come up with. It was a real group effort as well. Like, we really all came together and contributed various ideas to it. So It's very much like a combination of all of us, and David as well, by the way. The great David Halquist, who did the Kronos episodes that are vital bridges in the story. In terms of me specifically, what am I most proud of? I don't know if there's an arc that I'm most proud of yet. Like, here's kind of the problem. Sean's big arc is now, and, spoiler alert to all you guys, I'm not writing the episodes. I am acting the episodes. I am okaying the episodes and making sure, like, I'm telling them, like, hey, this is out of character for Sean or whatever, which I haven't had to do yet, by the way, for the record. But, like, I have that sort of I have that sort of power, and if I wanted to write, like, it would make Ben's life easier, so I'm sure he would let me. I'm just like, getting married. So like Ken, actually. Yeah. So I am not currently writing the episodes. I don't have the mental bandwidth at the moment. With that, and this is Sean's like biggest arc in the show. I can, however, say what my favorite episodes are. My personal favorite has been, since I've written it, Molly Maguire's. And the reason it's my favorite is that, very simply, it is the closest, as it turned out, to how I imagined it in my head.
Hey,
I had a
can
very
you, mute
clear.
yourself when you're not talking.
Oh, yeah, Ken. The Molly Maguire. Yep. Molly Maguire's is the closest to. It very simply is the closest in how it turned out to how I imagined it in my head. So for that reason, it is my favorite episode. I had a very clear vision of this is exactly what I want this episode to be. And I wrote it, and I'm like, yeah, this actually hits like exactly what I was hoping for. It hits all of the beats. I really like Pinkerton Sandevey as a character. I did not invent him. That was a Ben creation. But I liked writing him. I really liked the concept of the episode. I really liked how it concluded. I thought it was clever, in not genius. It's not like, there was some massive twist, but just the way that everything played out, I thought had a certain logical sense that was satisfying. I have other episodes I enjoyed. I also think another thing I'm proud of, I will say this, is that I think I have very noticeably improved my writing. Now, I was a writer before I started Pinkerton's Ghost. I was a published writer with a few short stories. So it's not like that I went into Pinkerton's Ghost with no writing experience. I actually had fairly, I don't know if significant's the right word, but I had like real writing experience. I was already a writer. But there is an old, you'll hear different versions of it. There's an old canard that the first, I've heard, million words or so is going to be kind of garbage. I've heard different numbers given. I've heard 100,000. I've heard 500K, right? Like, nevertheless, it's just generally accepted. Like, you need to write a pretty good amount before you become actually good, right? And the nice thing about Pinkerton's Ghost is that I did hit that amount just in writing Pinkerton's Ghost stories, especially pretty simple. The fact that we're aggressive, as Ben pointed out, most people would have been done at this point, and we are not. We have no immediate plans. We have a 5, like, spoiler alert for all you guys. We have like a 5-season plan in here. That's going to be the final season. There is absolutely nothing that has convinced us yet that we are not going to complete the full plan. So, we're not ending. We're totally still running.
Clear, that is just the main plot.
Yes, that too.
I have side projects I'm working on, novels I want to write, and since I am fighting to do more with my life and everything else like that, I promise you guys are going to see some great stuff, including some fun stuff I'm putting together even now. Anthony, let's move on to Ken Dickinson. Same question, sir.
Testing.
We can hear you, sir.
Testing. Okay, great. Sorry. So to everyone that is listening, I'm actually in a crowded shopping mall in the middle of the food court with my laptop plugged in to a table. So, hence the background noise, hence the background. Oh gosh, what am I most proud of? I'm very proud of the character of Loki. He's been a continued interesting character that's been evolving into more and more episodes. And yeah, I kind of invented it for my own tangles with supernatural presences. It's just kind of is an amalgamation of like two different personalities that experience so I think a specific episode, I actually had to go through and look at Human's Worst backlog because I have a terrible memory. It's not even funny at this point how bad my memory is. My new wife, Ryan, she is constantly baffled at how a person such as myself can have such legitimately terrible memory about just anything. It doesn't even matter. So I think that was actual episodes I've written. I really liked the goodness. I'm trying to find the actual name for it, but it was the one with oh yeah, the oh Ben, maybe you can remind me what it was called, where Jim winds up at the end of it in a storage yard and winds up shooting a whole bunch of teddy bear critters.
Oh, Teddy Bear's Picnic.
Yes, that was it. Teddy Bear's Kidnapping. Yeah, I had so much fun writing that story. It was the first
That was a fun one.
It was just such a weird. I think it was just a weird place when I wrote that. Which I mean, let's not get into it. That's just every time I write these episodes. I mean, the mosquito episode that came about because I literally was being woken up every night for 3 nights straight by a mosquito buzzing around my head, driving me actually crazy. But yeah, I think Teddy Bear's Kidnapping's got to be nice. What was the other question you were asking me?
No, I mean that's sufficient. It's just kind of like sort of things you're looking forward to.
Oh gosh, I'm looking forward to exploring Oberon and Jim's working relationship as it goes on. I think it's been no secret that Jim started to get a little bit changed and just get corrupted by all the times he's been using the Baron this year. So I'm very curious and very excited to tell the story of how that actually is going to, what's going to happen. Okay, it's time moves on the next couple of seasons. I think that's what I'm most excited about.
That's great stuff. And we're looking.
Actually, hold on. Forgive me for cutting off. I realize chicken actually looking forward to it's a option that we had talked about with Jack's character. Now, I don't want to spoil it for any of the people that are listening, but in our meetings, we've had some awesome discussion about what Ben's hoping to do. And he's had one idea, but every single time I hear about it, I just laugh still. Because I imagine it both from the perspective of how Jack would handle it, but also how Ben himself would handle it in real life. And the contrasts are so awesome. I can't wait for him to really reveal it to you guys. For sure.
Oh yeah. We definitely have a lot of things planned, especially with Ken's character Jim Donovan's development in season 4. Believe you me, that's going to be a pretty wild ride, especially with some of the things we planned for the end of season 3. Because like good writers, we're keeping everything very much separate, but at the same time flowing it all together. You still good, Ken, or is it time for us to say goodbye?
Unfortunately, because of my internet connection and just the fact that it's supposed to be where I should say goodbye. Once again, I want to issue an apology to all of our listeners. It's been so long since I've been either in these live streams or my delay of writing certain episodes. I'm really excited for this next season. I think you guys, as I said, you're in for a treat. I think you're going to absolutely love it. Ben, thank you for being such a taskmaster, making sure you actually sit and take this.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you for doing our audio editing. It's been the secret sauce, and I don't take it for granted. I would have to do it
I'll talk to
myself.
you guys soon.
Thank you, Ken. All right, guys. Thank you so much for working with us on that. Sometimes it's hard to get the schedules going, especially for a gentleman like Ken, where he is. Oftentimes he has weird hours that just don't let us hang out or do what we really want to do with him. But yeah, no, some of the stuff we've got planned for Jim Donovan is just going to be great. This is going to be a great thing. Sean Russo, let's see, Anthony. Season 3 has definitely been Sean Russo's story. I do want to talk a little bit more about Mother Morrow, but I do want to keep things on the present. The dead are, of course, dead, and so they can no longer be touched by us in any way, shape, or form until Judgment Day, Rapture Sound, and all that good stuff. How do you feel with Sean Russo's development through season 3?
Yeah, so this was one of the things that was discussed extensively before the season, and it's a very tricky balance to hit because it's a certain character archetype, and I have been thinking it over a lot because you see it and you see it handled badly quite often, especially in modern society. There's a YouTube channel called Second Look, I believe, is the name of it. It's a writer. I'm gonna try and find it.
I remember the name.
Yeah. Excellent channel. Has some really, really good videos. Just put out a new one today on anti-heroes, actually, which is apropos to the discussion. Yeah, the second story. That's it. Not the second look. The second story. So she talks about how one of the problems in the modern world is that we don't really have any idea of like what is and isn't moral, or modern writers don't. We do, right? As in you and me, but modern writers, as a rule, don't have any idea what even is or isn't immoral anymore. It's a big problem, right? So, like, they can't write moral stories, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So
you cannot write things from a moralistic perspective if you yourselves have no morals.
Yeah, exactly. And even more than that, they don't understand what it means to have good morals. So the example here comes from, she points this out, where he goes like, people, she was talking about heroes versus anti-heroes versus villains. And you go, oh man, she goes, like, I goes, I've heard Rambo, right, described as an anti-hero. And she's like, I'm sorry, what? She's like, I want you to think about this for a moment. That is genuinely one of the most absurd things you could say, right? Like, if you think about that for 30 seconds, like, Rambo as an anti-hero does not make any sense, because he doesn't do anything morally wrong, or almost nothing morally wrong, right? He is attempting to do the right thing at every step of the way. If anything, he is an unusually moral person, right? Now, this isn't a problem with the movie. The movie portrays it accurately, actually. It's a problem with the discourse, and it, like, explains why people have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to the subject. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, all of this is the setup to be, you go into something like The Punisher. I've had this debate, and it's a very, very tricky debate. Is The Punisher doing anything wrong? I've seen, for example, Jason Rennie, who is our good friend, the former editor of the Sci-Fi Journal, one of the founding fathers of the Superversive movement, and a really good guy. Jason Rennie used to say that he didn't think that the Punisher did anything wrong, that in fact he was just entirely moral, like top down, top to bottom, there was nothing immoral about about the Punisher. He didn't do anything incorrect. Right? Because he was only killing villains who deserved it and who otherwise couldn't be stopped. So, that's straightforward self-defense in his view, right? I have been thinking this over. I think it's a trickier question than people will give it credit for, right? I don't know if I agree with that. So, and Trigun is one of the better explorations of this idea because it gets into the nuances of it incredibly well. What the Punisher is doing is taking on the role of extrajudicial executioner, right? He is deciding with no trial, with no due process, and with no vested authority that he has the right to enforce justice on individuals, right? And specifically, he has the right to enforce the death penalty, the ultimate justice, which should properly be the realm of only the state. The exceptions are in times of self-defense, but only self-defense, right? And direct self-defense or defense of others, which is related to self-defense. Yeah. You get to Sean Russo, and I'm trying to portray with him a sort of descent into darkness as he goes for revenge, but this is the thing and where it gets tricky, right? Revenge isn't necessarily wrong. Thomas Aquinas talks about this. There is a certain place for vengeance, properly ordered, right? And yeah, vengeance isn't necessarily wrong. And going after evil people, which is what Sean objectively is doing, is not inherently wrong. So, what is Sean doing that's wrong? Like, what is dark? What is bad? What is the problem with what he's doing? And is it an objective moral thing, or is it something else? I think that there is a difference, and this goes to what I was saying with the Punisher and why I went on that whole tangent. I think that there is a difference between killing people and executing people, right? Killing people who are in the process of doing something evil is different than killing them because you're angry and you want revenge, right? Because that is not a call that you are permitted as a person to make. That is in the realm of the state. There's also something to be said for motivations, right? While there is a place for vengeance, vengeance needs to be properly ordered within justice, right? If your primary motivation is, I just want you to feel the pain that I felt, that's not righteous. That is immoral. And the problem with these sorts of things in the long run is that they corrupt you as a person and they make you into a different sort of person than you could be. Someone who is driven by anger, someone who is driven by hatred, and I don't think that there is really a place for that. I do not agree with I understand that there is a rhetorical ploy here, and I also understand that it's being used not necessarily in ways that, say, the Church Fathers or the grander, larger Christian tradition has used it, but I don't agree with the phraseology that there is a place for hatred in something like Christianity. Not really.
It's I've always felt that it's a reaction to what we now call woke or SJW or liberalism in different ways.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what it is.
In the Bible, it's clearly, God hates sin, and David has a scene, where he goes, God, I hate those, I hate your enemies, I hate sin, he the man after God's own heart deliberately says he hates, evil and evil wickedness and those who hate God, but at the same time, it's also David, and he showed mercies to those who did evil to him. So it's clearly that, like, internet discourse has muddied it until it's almost unusable. But, if we hate the things that God hates, but not in the way of executions or taking power away from God's, authority structure, it's an interesting. It becomes more than just, hatred. It becomes justice.
Yeah, I think that I guess what I would say is there's a subtlety to it, but going by the way that the Christian tradition has spoken about it for, hundreds and hundreds of years, over 1,000 years, right? I don't agree, and I've always felt this way. I don't agree that the phraseology of it as, oh, God approves of hatred, God wants you to hate. I don't think that that is helpful. I don't think that's the way that we should be going with it. I don't think that that properly gets across the nuances that we're talking about. I think that you're correct. It's absolutely a reaction to the SJWism. And I also know, like, with Vox, a lot of what he says is like, he's not necessarily. I don't want to reduce him to just a provocateur because that is incorrect, and he would deny that. Correct, and he would correctly deny that because it's not right. But a lot of what Vox says is worded in such a way as to get your attention, right? Like, and then you talk to him about it, and it's like a way more sane,
It's good
position than
rhetoric.
it sounds, right? This I think is one of the things. No, hatred is good. Then you talk, it's like, well, you hate what God hates, right? And God says he hates certain people, and who are the people he hates? The people who are sinners, right? Like the people who are active enemies against God's people. Well, yeah, okay. Fair enough, I suppose. But even then, it's like that's not really how the Christian tradition, just like the racism debate. But that's a whole other story that we could discuss another time. And by the racism, I don't mean is racism good or bad. I mean, is even the term racism remotely useful? I would argue at this point, no. It's just a useless piece of word salad. But anyway, yeah, going back to what Sean's character arc is and where he's currently at, it's like Sean is now turning into a different type of person because he is, the way that I am viewing it and the way that I am trying to present it is that it is very subtle and it's happening over time, but his motivations are slowly getting out of order, right? And that's the key to all of this. Everything needs to be in its right order. Can you hate the enemy? Like, yes, if you hate them because they're what God hates, if you're hating because you are on the side of the Lord, right? Can you hate the enemy because you hate them, right? Well, your ordering is wrong. Your motivation is not correct. Your motivation has become the hatred and not the desire to be like God. So that's the fundamental difference, I think, and where there is a lot of common ground between these sorts of positions. And okay, fair enough, right? Well, what's going on with Sean right now? Well, Cynthia's killed, and there are a lot of complex emotions that I am imagining have to go into this, which is that he feels guilty for even being as upset as he is, right? Because that shouldn't be correct. He's not even married to her anymore, right? Canonically, in the world of Pinkerton's ghosts, in fact, the marriage was annulled. This is in Gingerbread House. But yeah, like, or it was either annulled or about to be annulled. So he's not even married to her, right? He was going to marry Violet anyway. So the fact that this affected him so strongly is, number one, something that makes him feel guilty, right? Like, even if that's irrational. Like, he feels like it's his fault, but also he's genuinely quite upset about it. That feels like a sort of betrayal of Violet, but also it's genuinely how he feels, right? So there's subtleties going on here. There's also the fact that as Sean is fighting these monsters and cultists and demon worshippers and horrendously evil people and interacting with them all the time, there is this sort of danger in thinking that no matter what you do, you're going to be justified because of who you're dealing with, right? And this happens at certain points when Violet. So, for example, he kills a man in, I believe, Forest of Fear when Violet is threatened. And I presented that moment in a very, very specific and deliberate way. Violet is threatened in a very vague way, not like an immediate threat. And it's more like she's threatened by the organization. Like, he's not threatening to do anything to her. And Sean kills him because he's enraged. Now, it's going to be hard to blame Sean for this, but it's another small example of his motivations are no longer in the right order. He did not kill this man because he was a threat, and he did not kill this man for justice. He killed this man because of anger and hatred, right? And that's not why you need to be doing these things. So right now, Sean's motivations are out of order. In the same way, by the way, he's on a parallel arc to Jack. Right? Jack's motivations were out of order in a similar way, where he thought he was on the side of good, and he was in a very significant way, right? On the side of good, certainly trying to be on the side of God and the Lord. But he was not, his motivations were not ordered correctly, right? He was motivated too much by vengeance, hatred, by loathing of the occult, by vengeance against his own father, right? All of these different things. But after what happened with his mother and various things, he's slowly realizing that this approach, of make them pay, which is like the mantra of Jack, right, is actually wrong because it's the wrong motivation, ultimately. And Sean is kind of coming to the conclusion that Jack is leaving behind, right? That there is no other way out, right? Like, we need to make these people pay. This is what we need to do. This is our job, right? This is what I have to do. And that's why ultimately portraying this is very difficult, because it's like he's dealing with genuinely evil people. But I do want to show the moral decline in a very subtle way. Now, I do have an idea for how to do this in the final episode, and this came after much workshopping with you, in fact, and Ken. And I think it's good. I think it's what we need, and I think it's going to be a very, very, very effective finale that will portray these sorts of themes I'm presenting properly, and will be a good conclusion for this sort of character arc. But nevertheless, like, it's been a really interesting thing of trying to portray this sort of moral decay in a very subtle way. And still getting across that there is a moral decay going on without falling into like the hyper-modernist trap of like, well, it's bad because we say it's bad, right? This happens in a lot of modern Marvel movies, like, why is it evil? Well, because it's really unpleasant. Or like Black Widow, like here's a really good example of this. In the Black Widow movie, they break Red Guardian out of prison and they bury the prison in an avalanche. And Mahler makes this point, and he's brilliant, right? He says, what they just did, as they whoop and cheer, they bury this prison in avalanche, they just murdered that entire prison. He goes, I want to make this extremely clear. This is morally reprehensible. It is evil. And if you think that it's not evil, either because they killed guards or they killed prisoners, then you do not have the moral sense of a children's show character. He said Postman Pat, who apparently is a British children's show character. Right? Like, this is obviously, objectively immoral, but because the characters aren't acting like it's immoral, then it's okay. Like, that's the sort of thing I'm trying to avoid.
Right. And I think you've done quite well so far. Just because it's like, with not spoiling anything, but with how Jack's character is going to play out, it's that's the line, that's the question. There is a morality to this justice. Like recently, I saw a Twitter post that was like security guard shoots a what was he? Shoplifter at Spirit Halloween. Uh, like obviously shooting a guy in Spirit Halloween and not using him as decoration is a travesty. But also the fact that it wasn't really justified. Um, it was $90 worth of stuff. The guy was not violent. While thieves should be punished severely, more severely, especially in recent times due to the prevalence of thievery, you have to make sure that people understand not to do it. And that's a lot more difficult than I think people are willing to understand. Uh, you know, Shooting somebody over this stuff is not acceptable, especially when you have them down on the ground. It's how do I want to put it? Like, I don't want to be pro thief here. Okay, I am absolutely not pro thief. But the appropriate punishment for $90 from a Spirit Halloween is whipping and several hours of community service. Uh, that sort of thing, not death. Um, and I think that a lot of that is just lost on people. They either go, one way it's like, shoot a couple shoplifters. Well, actually, no. Like, as much as shoplifters need to be punished, shooting them to death is not the way to do it. And I know that makes me a bleeding heart liberal to only want shoplifters to be whipped, but that's where we are. So it's like, was the man shooting justified? Well, he wasn't even a police, he was a security guard. Um, the guy, I don't really see the guy pull anything out. But then again, I with how the news is, it may be one of those things where, in actuality, he brought out a bazooka and was pointing it at the man, and then he got shot. I'm not willing to totally remove that, but it's one of those things where it's like, as presented, it wasn't just. People understand it wasn't just. The problem is, of course, is that there's no whipping post for thieves, and our people are very unwilling to punish thieves at this time. Um, so it becomes morally complex. But fortunately, in the world of Pinkerton's ghosts, we don't have to worry about DAs letting werewolves go out on the streets except in Shipton. Um, that's partially because being a werewolf, being a vampire, being something like that is just immediate moral reprehensibility. These people are no longer shining examples of God's love. But in the case of a more complex villain, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because we live in a world, right, where objective morality is real. In fact, objective quality is real. Objectivity is real. Uh, that is not the world that a lot of the media lives in, right?
Yep.
And a lot of the modern media, I suppose, is a better way of putting it. So I'm trying to think of how to put this. It's not coming together well in my head, but yeah, like a lot of the modern media doesn't live in a world where objective morality is real, and we do. And what I mean, obviously, since it's objective, it is real. But what I mean is, in their minds, they don't see it that way, but we do. So when I am writing these stories, to me, there is an objective thing that I need to look at. Like the way that Sean acts, the decisions that he makes can be judged. Uh, and you could say whether they are right or wrong, and they're killing a lot of people. However, here's the thing, and this is like actually important. When I write Sean, whenever he does something, whenever he kills someone, I even will often mention it in the story. I give genuine thought to the idea of whether or not him doing this is moral. Right? Like, because killing a man should be a big deal. It should have weight. Again, that's one of the problems. The Black Widow movie, honestly, is such a great example. I'm almost glad it exists, right? Like, because it's such a clear example of the problem that I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Of like, oh, you could they've rescued the guy who they need, and they'll help them beat the bad guy. So who cares if you need to bury a prison, right? Meanwhile, though, like when a man is killed, when somebody dies, that should always be a big deal. That doesn't mean that they linger over every single death, that all of them have the equal sort of impact to the story. But I do make it a point that Sean, thus far, like when he kills someone, he does it for a reason, and he will even mention that reason. When Sean draws his gun, he'll look, I don't like killing people, but you got to be willing to do it. And this man was an immediate threat. I had no choice, right? Like now things are changing because Sean's in the middle of this arc and his priorities are getting screwed up. But even then, that also like has weight. And the fact that he doesn't accord it with the proper weight itself has weight, right?
Yes.
Like this, you can't do something, you can't take these actions and not and act like it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? You can't go around in a job that might involve you having to kill people and act like there is no moral standard that you're either upholding or not upholding. You need to consider what you're doing when you make these sorts of decisions.
Yes. It's yeah. Especially when there is like real spiritual natures on the line. Like you're getting married, which, could have been nice to know sooner. Just a random Facebook message. Come on, man. From somebody who wasn't even you, from a complete and total stranger, a bot from Hyderabad. Sir, you know your friend is getting married, right? You want a suit? And I'm like, what do you mean? Your friend Anthony. All of India is talking about it, sir. But
Incredible.
I love this running gag. I love it so much. I'm going to be sad when you actually get married. But it's like, when you become a father, it's like, you're dealing with children, right? The morality that you display will be almost more important than the morality. Will actually, be more important than the morality you talk about. The whatever, how do I want to put it? It'll be a real lived moral experience that your kids will grow up in and learn from. I've had no secret that one of the big things in my life is that, I'm a very wrathful man. So I work very hard to not display wrath. Where did I learn it from? Could it be that I had a wrathful father, who yelled at every little thing? So it's like, it's a cycle thing. If I am not a wrathful man to my children, what they will only have their natural Ben Wheeler, delivered. Well, at least I hope I'm the one delivering it. Set to wrath. The Wheeler, the Wheeler wrath gene. So that's actually a lot easier to deal with because then they can't blame me. Yes. Except in the natural sort of father to son way. You know, it's that loosening of generational trauma. And so in a place where you have real ghosts and vampires and everything like that, you know, the reason for doing something is more important than the act of doing it.
Uh, yeah, I sort of get. I think I get what you mean by that. Like that, the reason is more important than the act of doing it, right? Because okay, so again, I really like the example of the Black Widow movie. So let's take that for a moment and imagine how you could do it well. Um, you could there. I could think of a few different ways. One way you could do it is if you were doing a sort of more noir tinged world, or a more desperate type of world, not the sort of superhero-y thing, is you could have the prison get buried and then have one of the characters be horrified by it and the other just shrug and go, that's the price you have to pay in a world like this, right? You know, like it's kill or be killed. This was our only way to escape. We had no choice, right? The only thing is, if you're going to do that, I mean, you might have an objectively more heroic character, but you've now created a character with a significant gray area. Again, it would have to be the case because morality is objective. So you can't have somebody who is okay with something like that and not have it be a flaw. Like, it objectively is a flaw, you know, that you're okay with something like that. At the very least, it's a compromise, a moral compromise that this character is willing to make, and that should change them. So that's one way you could do it. You could, I'm just making stuff up off the fly wildly, reveal that, for example, like you have implied in various episodes, some of which have not come out yet, so I will be vague, but you've implied that sometimes there are whole organizations that are really fronts for other things where it will, sure, innocent people might get caught up in it, but there's no choice because otherwise a great evil is going to be unleashed on the world, right? Nevertheless, what you have to do is a tragedy that is going to leave scars, but it is a necessary thing that you need to do. Like, at the very least, if they escape, like, somebody needs to treat this with a certain amount of gravity. Hundreds of people have just been buried in an avalanche, right? Like, this is something that has weight. Chainsaw Man, believe it or not, is actually quite good about this. Especially part one. And this is why part one of Chainsaw Man is such a masterpiece, because despite the fact that it is an absolute, like, honestly, one of, like, the most horrifying fictional worlds I can recall. The only one I can think of that's worse is maybe Fire Punch by Tatsuki Fujimoto. So Fire Punch World might be worse. But nevertheless, Chainsaw Man World is truly one of, like, the most horrifying crapsack worlds you can imagine. You know, people are dying constantly. And yet, in the world of Chainsaw Man, death has weight, right? Death does matter.
Yep.
Like, it's not something that is irrelevant. You know, I'm trying to think of irrelevance, not quite the right word. Maybe I should say it like this. Tatsuki Fujimoto, the creator, clearly understands the difference between right and wrong, right? Like, Denji, the character, will do something like people will die randomly of horrible things, and sometimes Denji will do something morally questionable. Of course, in a world where everybody is morally compromised to some extent, Denji still probably grades out as one of the most heroic characters in the story, right? If for no other reason than he has morals, right? Like, he feels genuine guilt over things that he does wrong. He tries to do the right thing, even if he fails, you know, stuff like that. But even in this world, if Denji kills a man, it is either A, presented as a big deal, right? Or B, presented as a big deal that it's not a big deal. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's subtle, but I'm thinking of, in part, there are two things in particular, really. in part 2, he has that thing where he kills the guy who turned into a tree and uses it to like restore his blood, which like recharges his powers. Chainsaw Man's a weird series, guys. And then I think Asa's horrified at him, and there's another guy who's horrified at him, and he goes, "What? What are you talking about? I didn't have a choice." But even though this is sort of played as kind of dark comedy, the fact is that Fujimoto recognizes that something is wrong with Denji, right? Like, normal people don't do this, don't act like this. You know, it
Don't have
shows a
this
sort of
thought so quickly. Like it's almost like the issue isn't so much that he did it, it's that, okay, what's my first reaction? Well, these trees bleed even though they're people. Let's go.
right, but that's the key here is that Fujimoto recognizes that this is messed up. Right?
Yes.
Like, it is not just a random thing. It's not like Denji does this and it's just presented as, okay, you're supposed to cheer, right? Like the Black Widow scene, you know. You're supposed to see it, go, that is extremely messed up, acknowledge that, and then because Fujimoto's not a hack, it actually affects the narrative later, right? Like, not in an
Yes.
immediate way and not in an obvious way, but Denji is racked with guilt and says, "Hey, you know what? Maybe I deserve to die. I've done horrible things. Like, what? You know, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong here. You know,
Mhm.
because your actions have consequences, right? There's such a thing as objective morality. People can die left and right in the world of Chainsaw Man, but it works because death still has weight.
Yes.
Death still matters. You know, morality still exists."
Yes. And
There's a lot of
it's
really great things going on in Chainsaw Man. So many deep thematic things. I absolutely love the thing that they do with the boomers in part 2. Part 2 is a mixed bag for several reasons, although I think it gets too much hate and it's much more good than bad. Uh,
oh,
yeah, it's definitely more good than bad. It's not as good as part 1, but that's because part 1 is like probably a top 5 shonen ever. Uh, at least top 10, you know.
right.
But anyway, like part 2, yeah, it's just run of the mill good. Uh, but one of the things I absolutely love in part 2 is the brilliant metaphor of the aging devil and the boomers. How they are willing to kill the aging devil is willing to kill himself, and all they have to do is sacrifice a bunch of children to him, right?
All you
And
have
then
to do.
aging will disappear. Is this going to help anyone but old people? No. Will it even necessarily be good for them? Also, no, but they won't die, and that's what they're afraid of. So they get immediately what they want at the expense of the young, for a benefit that's not even really clear and is only for themselves. I'm like, that could not possibly be a better metaphor for boomers and right, the boomer and the boomer
Yes.
generation and what they're doing to younger generations. Like, it's honestly it's almost too dead on. Like, it's almost so dead on it becomes on the nose.
Right. It's like, now that I want to turn it into it, it's like it's one of those things where it's a difference in morality. You know,
Yeah.
fundamentally, Denji is fairly amoral, but if he cares about you, he's gonna fight to the death for you. You know, it's clear that he just kind of like doesn't care what society wants him to do or think or anything like that. It's something that comes up, you know, sometimes for myself, and I'm sure for you as well, where it's like, you know, that you're doing something Christian, and then it's like, I don't want you to do that. You know, you know, that's weird, that's wrong. You know, don't you know, try to counsel a woman away from an abortion. You know, or like, you know, because I'm a bouncer. You know, why are you throwing me out? Because you tried to piss on the employee prep area. Yeah, but you know, I don't want you to do that. You know, it's like, you know, like everyone can agree that's wrong, but the guy, you know, is trying to make a moral argument as to why I shouldn't throw him out for almost unzipping his fly and letting his fire hose go. It's these, how do I want to put it? Like, if you don't mind losing social cachet with people you don't like anyway, it doesn't matter what you do, as long as it's not a sin before God. It's like, if you do something distasteful, oh, I wouldn't do that. It's like, well, buddy, when's the last time we hung out, or you bought me a beer, or, we did anything more than be like work friends or people I see randomly? You, Denji is of that mindset, if he even thinks about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is going to be the last I say about this. It's not Chainsaw Man stream, but I would argue that Denji as a person is actually fairly. He actually does have morals. He's a moral person, but the problem is that Denji's entire view of world and society has been warped by extreme trauma. Right, going basically from almost birth, from very young childhood. Right. So his idea of what is right and wrong is extremely warped, and then got warped even more because he got, fused with a devil who's and devil ideas of morality are backwards and at the very least also warped, right? They don't have the same view of morality as humans do, so Denji sort of adopts that view as well, and just again, like by necessity. However, when you actually pay attention, Denji clearly is concerned about the difference between right and wrong, right? Like, he wants to do the right thing. He just has a really hard time identifying what that is. He's really a very tragic character, and you could definitely see, beneath all of the weirdness with Denji, that, if he was in a good environment, if he were raised properly by people who loved him and all of that stuff, he would probably be a good person. Right?
Yes.
There's at his core, there's almost like a sweetness to Denji, right?
Yeah.
He has a genuinely caring side to him and he has a he genuinely cares about morality. There's a very moving scene that was relatively, a few months ago at this point, so relatively recently, in Chainsaw Man, where it hits him that he's done horrible things and he wants to do something to make up for it, and he's genuinely upset about it.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
It's. Yeah, I think that Denji is a really, really well-written character in ways that I think people don't give Fujimoto enough credit for. Because the big criticism is that Denji's too static, that he doesn't change enough, that he keeps making the same mistakes. I would argue that he actually does change quite a bit, and that he does, and that there is an evolution to Denji's character. It's just that the evolution is subtle, and the evolution is much more realistic than the sort of thing that you normally see in these sorts of stories, which is not what people are expecting, right? Overcoming trauma is not going to really be a thing that's possible when you are repeatedly getting re-traumatized, right? You're looking for Denji to grow and become better. And that can't be what happens when you're in a world that repeatedly is shitting on you. When is the point where Denji becomes better? When his foster sister dies? When, everybody every woman in his life abuses him in some way, except for Asa? It's yeah, I don't know. That's my thought.
And she's not a very good. She's not good at it either.
No. She's also a fantastic character, by the way. She has that one line in the absolute best arc of part 2, one of the best arcs in all of Chainsaw Man. I would argue maybe a top 3 arc in all of Chainsaw Man, behind the Reese arc and the final arc of part 1. It's a really, really great arc. when she says solitude and companionship. I'm afraid of both of them. And I'm like, that was a scary, relatable line. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm like, that line was so in my head. I had a momentary out of body experience. Like,
Yeah. It's just
I'm
great
like,
writing.
I gotta stop reading for a moment. It's like that is that is next level character writing right there. Um, okay. Anyway, you can move on now. I just
Yeah.
wanted to talk about that for a bit. It's fun.
Well, it's like we're the sum of our influences, and we here at Pinkerton's Ghosts, we do take great care to have good influences on us, and not just like the Sunday morning knockoff cartoons before church kind of thing, but actual good quality, and that's what we're talking about here because it's beyond our own relations to something where it's like solitude and loneliness, solitude and what did she say again?
Solitude and companionship. I'm afraid of both of them, I believe was the line.
Yeah, companionship, is something that everyone can relate to, sure, but it's designed for a certain kind of mindset, where it's like Jack might know he needs people around him, but he's also like he doesn't live a life that lets people in, to the point where it's like, oh well, what about romantic relationships? Well, in actuality, he needs somebody who's as baptized into the hidden world as he is to have something like it. And even then, they're both weirdos. Sean Russo needs somebody who can handle, his weird ass life. Um, but in this moment, where a companion, even though she's, a separated companion, but she's killed. She's removed from him forever. And there's not really a good guarantee that she was a Christian. She's gone. Um, it's how right now he's in a lonely stage of things where he might work with people or interact with people or talk with people, but it's not quite the same. He doesn't really want a connection with, say, Nick or Lady Palos Vidokos, or others, um for it, or even villains like Morgana, and certainly not Violet, while he's taking vengeance for Cynthia. um it's a mindset, where he's separate from these things, and definitely, um he just it's, how do I want to put it, it's a mindset. You might want people, but to take people to you is to invite a certain amount of change, especially for people like Asa, who aren't really confident in themselves and their personalities. Like, I know for myself, I don't give two toots what most people think of me. But at the same time, I'm going to shower and comb my hair and, take care of things. It's clear that this sort of humdrum life is more complicated than I am Timon the misanthrope. I hate people. Jack Morrow isn't no Timon, the misanthrope. He doesn't hate people. Same with the rest of them. So it's like with Pinkerton's Ghost, it's like we have to take these things into account. As much as we'd like something like Monster Hunter International, where the main character basically lives within a society of monster hunters and monsters, and all this other stuff. The world isn't set up for it. The schemes behind, things like Mother Morrow and stuff like that, the reason why everyone panicked, wasn't just because, someone went into hell alive. It was, one of the best agents of the paranormal Pinkertons went down alive. A man who has, killed many, many monsters, to the point where people comment that he just, like if he sees a goblin in the road, that isn't hiding itself or something like that, he just swerves, takes it out, and keeps driving. Like it's breathing to him, And the paranormal Pinkertons, when they had their purge at the beginning of the series, functioned as kind of lawn care. They took care of a lot of things that you don't think about. in the background. You don't want to think about a million little people, seeing a UFO in the sky, or some schizophrenic talking about how he was abducted by aliens and impregnated with a cow fetus or something stupid like that. You want to spend your stuff on like the snake mounds in Ohio and the ghosts that are inside, the terrifying ghosts in Ohio that we have not brought up as much as we probably should. Do you know about the serpent mounts in Ohio? It's pretty bad. It's like that's what they want to think about. We try for um, an organic moment within Pinkerton's Ghosts where things don't, um, where things aren't, the apocalypse, even though it does happen sometimes, on your day to work. Where it's like, actually, there is an order, a hierarchy to things. And just like a medieval lord would starve to death if all his peasants are down, if all his peasants are sick or something, or dead, his fields burnt, not tending the fields. In the same way, the world would be a worse place if there weren't people doing things like, killing werewolves. I've lost track of where I am. Something society that we live in.
Yeah, we do. It do be like that. We do live in a society.
And it's like Jack is like giggling to himself. We live in a society as he plants a silver axe head into a werewolf skull. Yep. What do you think? We do live in a society. It's like, shut up, man. As the werewolf
I
tries
can
to
imagine
run.
Jack doing that, but completely deadpan. He's just battling through like monsters and werewolves and just musing philosophically. And then meanwhile, as they're all like running and dying around him, he's like, I don't know, I live in this world where I'm constantly seeking vengeance, but then what am I supposed to do? As he's killing a werewolf, and he's like, we do live in a society. It do be like that.
It do be like that, Mr. Werewolf.
And he's like, so are you not going to kill me? No, I'm totally going to kill you.
No.
No, you're an abomination from God. You deserve hell.
You willingly gave up your God-given human form. You're trying to spit in his eye. You murder people. It's like, no. But
obviously, I'm going to kill you.
Obviously, but do you think society made you this way, or is it a personal choice? Is there an answer that will let me live? Society? I don't like society. Plants axe.
It's like I guess society needs to go down next.
Where can I kill society? But Jack, don't you know society is all around you? No.
So here's a genuine thing that's actually more on topic than you think. I found, and I'll link it to you if I can find it, a very, very interesting article that was somebody going through the Perseus and Medusa myth. And it was a little speculative, which was kind of a shame, though there wasn't much they could do about it because this is all like extremely distant past type stuff that they're talking about, but the speculation was about, like, I'm trying to think of how to put it exactly. What was going on in the Perseus the Perseus myth? Really, they said forget Ovid. Ovid says that it was he was making the equivalent of titillating sexy Hollywood versions of the myths for bored housewives. I think that's an unfair characterization of Ovid, who was a great poet. Who created many iconic versions of the stories. With that said, I do think that it is functionally correct about the fact that Ovid's versions were not the originals and were updated for his own reasons. So let's go back to the Medusa myth. The idea that Medusa was raped by Poseidon or something like that and was some sort of victim in the story arises with Ovid. That's not in the original myth, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where the article got interesting. They said, well, what do we know about Medusa and the Gorgons, right? They said, here's what's interesting. It seems like the Gorgons and Medusa specifically predated the Greeks. In fact, predated the Greeks by quite a bit. They said, and we know this because of archaeology, right? We have a lot of different, like, we have a lot of different monuments and ruins of things that have the Gorgon head on it. So that raises the question of what did that mean? They said, well, Perseus kills a monster and then he founds a city off of this, right? Like, essentially, he's one of the Greek civilization builders, along with starts with a C. I can't remember his name. Colinus or something like that. That's not it. And Heracles would be the other, right? Like or Theseus actually would be the other. You know, the culture heroes.
Yeah, there's like, Hercules is the big one. Perseus is the big one. I don't know about C, but there's who was the guy who started Thebes? Brother of Europa with the dragon's teeth. I don't, was he actually a C?
Names are I'm not great with some of the ancient Greek names. Let me try and figure this out. But whatever. Okay, doesn't matter. I'm going to go back to the Perseus thing, right?
Cadmus.
So, okay, so you got Perseus. They said there's some weird things. It goes, if you look at the earliest versions of the myths, there's some weird things about it. For one thing, they go, Medusa is described as a monster, but as a monster who's immortal. They said, and yet Perseus kills her. So he goes, I think, and he goes, this is where it gets speculative. He goes, I think Medusa was probably the god of this pre-Greek society. And they said, like, anytime you have these truly evil societies, like these really truly demonic, like there's nothing good about them, right? The Carthaginians, the Aztecs, and things. There's always some sort of matriarchal element to it, right? Some sort of, goddess mother thing. And the societies that have some level of greatness have patriarchal element to it, right? Zeus, the All-Father, and then Christian Europe, of course, has God the Father and the Israelites, right? All of this stuff. Okay. Again, we're in very speculative territory here, but it's at least interesting to me. He says, I think that what we're looking at with the story of Perseus is sort of founding culture story, where Medusa, they go, there's a city that is ruled by this evil king that has a monster in the middle of it, but I think the monster is really their god, right? And Perseus comes in, and they said it's not stated explicitly, but it's heavily implied that he, based on like the wording of the early myths, that he had a war band prepared for the city. He did not just go alone because they were established. They were, Perseus was like almost a commoner who rose up, right? And this city was established and ancient and had, kings and guards. So he goes expecting a battle and is shocked to find that they have trusted in their magic and they're all asleep. They're not expecting anyone to dare attack them. So Perseus can sneak in. And of course, he can only kill the Gorgon by not looking at her face. I said, but again, breaking the laws of magic, the Gorgon's head still has power, even though it's dead, right? This is not how magic is supposed to work. When the monster dies, it shouldn't have power anymore. They said, so I don't think that the Gorgon was originally a monster. I think it was a god that the Greeks recast as a monster. And the reason they recast the god as a monster is because gods don't die. But Medusa was killed. Therefore, Medusa can't have been a god. Medusa must have been a monster, right? And with the killing of this creature, right, this Gorgon, the Greeks are able to found their civilization on the ruins of the old. They're able to overthrow the hierarchy, to give the cut that ultimately destroys this corrupt and decadent and evil civilization, right?
Right.
Okay, so all of this, in my opinion, is fundamentally correct, or maybe not correct, but it does speak to a sort of fundamental truth here about how cultures kind of establish themselves and the cultural myths and things and what's going on in the Medusa story.
Right.
And when we look at that and we see, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like where I was going with this originally, and I did have a plan here, but I've
Something about against the matriarchy against the Longhouse.
Yeah, yes. This is kind of where we're at in the modern day. And by the way, if you have grokked this as a Bronze Age pervert disciple, you are not wrong. You probably did, I would imagine, based on the way that I spoke about it. I do think that there's something to this idea that the feminine matriarchal culture needs to die for the greatness of the patriarchal culture, because what you get with the feminine matriarchal culture, this is why matriarchal as leadership doesn't work, right? Because it's permissive, and by being permissive, it leads to atrocities. And I guess what I'm saying, this is where we get to, like, we live in a society type thing, right?
Yes. He said it. He said it.
Yeah, I know. That's where I was leading to. Like, we live in a society. So what does that mean for where we're at right now? Well, at the moment, we live in that sort of matriarchal society, or at the very least, we might not live in it, but we are in a society that is at war with it, right? It's constantly pushing back against this sort of matriarchal force. And to be clear, the feminine, just like the masculine, can and has been perverted, right? But the perversion of the masculine is something very different. This is the perversion of the feminine. The problem is the perversion of the feminine is ultimately like, if the feminine is in charge, that's the perversion of the feminine, right? The feminine cannot be the one in charge.
Yes.
The masculine needs to be the one in charge. That's the role of the masculine. That's what the masculine is meant for. The feminine has a place in society, has a very important and stabilizing place in society. And when it has no place in society, that is also evil, right?
Yeah.
It's a different type of evil. We see this in the ancient Greek world, by the way, which was highly patriarchal, and the ancient Roman world, which was also highly patriarchal. Ancient Rome achieved a greatness, but ancient Rome was also highly evil.
Yep.
Ancient Greece as well achieved a greatness, but ancient Greece was highly evil. Sparta was evil. A lot of people don't realize this. There is a certain respect you could have for Sparta and the Spartans, but when you actually look into them, like, you can begrudgingly respect them, but they're evil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, they murder their own, slave caste. Like, and sure, like, there was a certain discipline, and they weren't saved, they weren't Christians. And no, I don't believe that they were Jews, or related to the Jews at all. But it's one of those things where, if you were a slave in Sparta, sure, you weren't getting conquered anytime soon. But if you went home at night, some Spartan teens, another euphemism for the crime rate in America, would stab you to death. And get away with it too. Like, the whole point was to get away with murdering their own people, keeping them as a slave caste. Like,
yeah, one of the things you realize about Sparta, like, I read a really interesting series of articles on this. So there's a big back and forth of, like, should we, how much respect should we have for Sparta? Should we respect them as, like, oh, they were the ultimate masculine warlike people? I've seen people say this. Or should we be like, no, they were evil? I tend to actually be, and this might surprise you, more in the evil camp. Like, the Battle of Thermopylae is romantic for a reason, right? It's a romantic battle. However, when you actually look at the Spartan war record, there are a few things stick out. Number one is that it's more reputation than actual fact. They lost the war with, or they won the war with Athens, but they didn't last very long. part of like the famous if quote. They said, well, a lot of what people don't remember about the famous if quote is that when they actually eventually, although it did take a while because Philip didn't attack them immediately because he kind of respected the response. But when they were eventually attacked, like they folded. Yeah. Like
Yes.
the if quote was like, yeah, it's a very nice quote, but ultimately it was like if, okay, well, you lost, so if
Yes.
like I don't know what you want from me.
And it's like, again, to respect them, that works out, but it's how do I want to put it? Like, yeah, like, they were going to beat any barbarian tribes. They beat the Egyptians and the Persians in different wars. They had influence over the Aegean Sea, but it didn't really last as long as like other things did. And by the time of say, Rome, it was a joke. It was kind of a former thing. It had passed away. Like Lycurgus remade the Spartans into the Spartans, but I'm sure, but once they started, like, not following their law, they faded to nothing. Athenian democracy is actually the big winner, but over, the 1,000 years, not over, the lifetimes of the men involved in them. Anyway.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I'm thinking this over. Again, I've lost my train of thought. By the way, I'm pretty sure that the guy who I was thinking of, the city founder who I said started with a C, was another culture hero, Cadmus.
Yeah, I said Cadmus.
Yep.
Later.
So you're correct. It's Cadmus, the guy, the founder of Thebes. Why am I reading this thing? I just looked this up and it says the first king of Athens was Cecrops. I thought Theseus was the first king. Again, whatever.
Well, the first, Theseus is a creature of myth. Like, do I believe that there was a Theseus? Actually, I do. I actually believe most of these guys were real in some way, shape, or form.
Sure, yeah. Gilgamesh was almost certainly real. Odysseus, we know his palace.
Yep. But it's how do I want to put it? Like the academics don't like the idea of myths having any real thing to them. I think, like, I've thought about this for a while, and I actually think the reason why they hate these things being real, fairies being real, whatever, is because they hate God and they hate the supernatural, and they're autistic. So they would rather destroy a thing than to admit that a thing might be correct. If you get me.
Oh, yeah. G.K. Chesterton has a fantastic poem about this that I highly recommend called The Myth of Arthur. I actually have it memorized. I'm not going to say the full thing, it's long, but it's a learned man who never learned to learn, save to deduce by timid steps and small, from towering smoke that fire can never burn, and from tall tales that men were never tall. Say, have you learned what manner of man it is, of whom men say he could strike giants down? Or what strong memory over time's abyss bore up the pomp of Camelot and the crown? You get the idea, right?
Yes.
And he's absolutely correct, and that's a brilliant thing. Like, you see it all the time. Like, oh, the Trojan War is a myth, and then there was a guy who said, hey, maybe we should, like, check, and then they found evidence of wars at Troy.
Yes.
And then, of course, you get, idiot egg-headed academics who go, well, it's obviously not the Trojan War. And it's like, really? Why not? Like, seriously, like, how on earth could you possibly know that? You can't know that. Or, like, this is the other thing. I've had this conversation where, like, well, yeah, there was a Trojan War, but obviously it wasn't like, Helen of Sparta or anything. It's like, really? Like, seriously, I want you to think about this for a moment. Why couldn't a Greek princess have been kidnapped in the start of war? I honestly do not get why that's so implausible. World War I started because an archduke was assassinated by a Serbian terrorist group that was made up of incompetent students.
It was entirely an accident that they succeeded in their assassination attempt.
In my absolute favorite of all time Wendigoon video, the hilarious death of Archduke Ferdinand, where he says, "I like to think that there was a moment where what's his name, Joseph Princip,
Yeah.
yeah, Princip." He goes, "Where or Gavrilo Princip, that was it."
Yeah.
Where Gavrilo Princip, he goes, he was at a sandwich shop, and the car of the Archduke just randomly broke down directly in front of him. And he says, and I like to think there was a moment where Gavrilo Princip had a choice between starting the largest conflict in human history and a sandwich, and he chose violence. Uh, and yeah, that's about it. But like, think about this for a moment, where you go like, oh, well, obviously it's not like what happened in Trojan War. It's like, really, you don't think it's possible that a Greek princess was kidnapped and this started a war? Why not? Or even that a Greek princess ran off with a handsome foreign dignitary who was visiting, like, and this
Yeah.
started a war. That seriously sounds incredibly plausible to me.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I don't know. Would they really do this? Well, no, like Greek society was one of the most testosterone charged societies of all time.
But
How
besides,
else?
like, you can that would happen today.
Yes.
Like, can you seriously imagine if the Queen of England like ran off with a foreign dignitary and they said "fuck you" or not doing like that would start a war?
No,
Like,
it
of course it would start a war.
no, it wouldn't. Our leaders are too cucked.
Maybe. But I don't know. Even then, though, like it would be at the very least, it would be like this would be a massive thing. I don't know. It sounds very plausible to me.
Yeah.
Is my point, right? Like this idea that we don't know that it happened, but yeah, and it's the same thing he's saying with like his point was with Arthur, right? Like that. Oh, was there an original Arthur? Now I am of the opinion that Arthur is it doesn't really make sense to talk about an original Arthur in the way that we talk about it, because Arthur is frankly the way that the legend has arisen and come down to us. It's just there are too many different versions that coalesce together to talk about one Arthur. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Arthur who won Baden Hill is referred to as as the leader of a war band, right? Whereas the Arthur of the Mabinogion is hardly referenced at all, even as a king. He's just like a king, right?
Right.
This idea of him as a great king is sort of only arises later, and it doesn't seem like he's the same person as the warband Arthur. Although maybe that's where one got the name from the other. It's possible that the warband Arthur was in fact real in some way, because there is something notable about the warband that, like, supposedly this Arthur, either Arthur or Arthur's warband, killed like 900 people in one battle, right? Like,
Yes.
and Baden Hill was a historical battle, so it's possible that the myth comes from that. It's possible that the myth came from Aurelianus, except that Geoffrey of Monmouth decided to make Aurelianus an ancestor of Arthur or like a relative of Arthur instead of Arthur himself. But Aurelianus was very real.
Yep.
And Geoffrey of Monmouth, or not Geoffrey of Monmouth, sorry, Geoffrey Ashe, who's a modern historian. He floated the theory that Arthur was based off a king named Riothamus, who traveled and conquered some cities in Gaul, and then disappeared after literally marching to Avalon and being betrayed by Medraut. There's some curious distinctions there, but then if you actually look more deeply into it, it's one of those things where it's like, this might be more smoke than fire, but it's very interesting. And I've even seen a shockingly plausible theory that I know you hate with a fiery passion, that it's based on that Arthur has some basis with an Irish king. I'm sorry, I only report. I thought it was an interesting theory, Ben.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. The point being that when you look in the ancient Greeks, like going back to Sparta, so when I was saying, like, I'm afraid that as much as I know that there's like a certain, people are like, it's too, people who hate Sparta, it's like very anti-masculine. From as far as I could tell with Sparta, what they basically did was indoctrinate their children into something not too dissimilar from like Al-Qaeda cults today, with child armies. They were quite an evil society. Now, again, is there a sort of admirability to some of it? Like the sayings of the Spartan women are very fun, with your shield and on it and things like that. Thermopylae is a very romantic battle and deservedly so. I think that Thermopylae's reputation is earned. It's reported by the great Herodotus, who Herodotus was definitely on the side of the Greeks and trying to make them look good, but he also has this thing where everybody just kind of assumes that Herodotus is lying, and there's a sort of guilty until proven innocent thing going on with him, which is really strange because most of what he says ends up getting verified. The old Johnny Depp meme. It's like, so it turns out you were telling the truth, and it was funny how often that happens. Yet people are always surprised. Right? It's the
Yeah.
thing with Herodotus where they go, oh, like he of course he portrays the battle this way. He's Greek. It's like, yeah, okay, but he's literally the only source from the battle, and pretty much, right?
Yes.
And also it's very detailed, and we don't really have any reason to think it's not true, except it seems too good to be true, which
Right.
isn't a very good answer.
Right.
Like,
It's a historian's answer, but not necessarily a good answer.
yeah, it's not. It's a bad historian's answer, though, right? Like,
Yes.
it's too good to be true isn't an actual reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do think that they've earned their reputations at Thermopylae, and there's a certain romanticism to Sparta. But I think when you actually look into their society, and to be fair, you do need to put into the context of the age, right?
Right.
But even in the context of the age, what they were doing was essentially indoctrinating children into something sort of similar to like war cults. They were a war cult. That's really
Yeah.
what they were. They were a cultic war city. It's extremely frustrating that people try and portray them as being particularly dedicated to the god Ares. In fact, nobody in Greece was really particularly dedicated to the god, or no city, I should say. People were, because he was one of the Olympians, but no
Yeah.
city was particularly dedicated to the god Ares. He was considered to be a bit of a cuck, and a loser in Greek
Yes.
mythology. The really warlike city admired Athena, and Sparta was no exception. Their patron god was Athena.
Mm.
Among others, by the way. There were
Yeah.
actually other patron gods, but Athena was one of them.
Yeah. It's where are we going with this, Anthony? Not even I can bring
I guess
it
where
back
I was going,
down.
where I was going with this ultimately was that, like, I think that the Spartans were. I think that you need to look at the society of the day. Like, I think that they were an evil society. That's basically where I was going with it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think, what we were going into was, in the modern day, we have this battle between the masculine and the feminine impulses. I think that it goes back to what we were saying about right order, and I think Christianity figured out the right order.
Mm.
Now, I, of course, would say Catholicism, but we don't need to quibble over that now, since we agree on the broader Christian principles here.
That's right. That's right.
So we'll discuss that. We could discuss that another time. But yeah, I think that what you get in the ancient world are these sort of the ordering being wrong, right? So Sparta is what you get when the masculine influence is too strong, as well as Rome, right?
Mhm.
Rome was and you get these truly magnificent societies, right? Societies that achieve greatness in several very real and concrete ways, but did so but on the back of great atrocities and evils,
Yes.
And if you on the matriarchal side, it's actually much worse because the ordering is even more perverted than it is in the on the other side, because at least in that society, the leadership at the top is correct, right? The
Yes.
head of the society is right. In the matriarchal society, you are being ruled by a thing that is not meant to rule, that is perverted in its way of ruling, and thus will lead to far worse things than what you see in the patriarchal societies. You get the evil without the greatness, even, right?
Yes.
Like, and even that's kind of exaggerated. So where, like, by exaggerated, what I mean is like evil without the greatness is almost not quite right, because you're supposed to have the masculine at the head, right? But the feminine needs to have a place. It needs to have a proper order. Justice tempered with mercy, if you want to put it in that way. Although even that might not be exactly right. But yeah, like you get the Carthaginians, you have these mother societies, and what the ancient Greeks were taking over was this sort of mother society of the Gorgons. And now that's the society we live in now. And this brings us back around finally, and we can end it here, and we'll be at our hour, to Pinkerton's ghosts. That's right. We were getting there all along. There was a point. Modern American society, like Pinkerton's Ghost, in many ways is about the decline of America and Americana, right? About the end of it, and about the fact that this is what we're living through and what we're living in. That the barriers are breaking down, that the old gods are getting stronger. Well, where the old gods get stronger, it's because the old feminine matriarchal impulse is coming back. You get that infamous statue, which is what that article that I read was about, of Medusa holding the head of Perseus, right?
Yes.
An evil statue. Really sick and disgusting when you think about it. Like there's something truly perverse about such a statue, where our heroes are portrayed as defeated by monsters, right?
Right.
And somehow that's a good thing. Really awful.
It is. It's meant to destroy the hearts of men. I feel like sometimes I'm like from Lord of the Rings, where it's like, the age of men is over. Well, yeah, they literally tried to do that. It's less of an exaggeration. It's less of a strange thing. It's it is what the enemy's plan is. If the enemy can snuff out in this generation and more all masculinity, all bright dreams, they will win in a way. They will have we will have to rebuild things that we never really thought we would have to rebuild, that our ancestors never thought we would have to rebuild. And it's hard for people to understand what's going on here, because you have to think in a deep way beyond our time, beyond the physical. If you're living in a material world, you can't really think of the spiritual. It's like when like a woman who is slutty, suddenly realizes that she's a slut. It makes her go crazy. Or women who are abused in this way, like BPD. It just happens to show up in women more than men, but there's still a madness to it all, that when the sin, consumes them. Right now we're experiencing more and more, supernatural demonic activity. From what I hear from another source, Bigfoot sightings are on the way up by an incredible amount. It's not just that people can speak about Bigfoot easier. Like, we have two immense statues to foreign gods in our lands, and a third one planned. It's disgusting. It is an offense to God for us to call ourselves a Christian nation and let them stand. It is offensive to have churches to foreign religions on our soil. And every single one that hates God is unacceptable to even lay one brick upon another. But at the same time, we're stuck in a justice kind of set. Our Puritan ancestors, excepting Anthony, would have burned it down. But certainly, if someone was building a mosque in Italy in many generations, there would have been riots in the street. It would have been burned down. But we're not in those times. And while the times remain feminine, trapped in this sort of thing, we won't get to see what would actually be godly to do. and just running out and burning it down now would be unjust. So we have to wait. It, but soon, one hopes.
Yeah, it's and that's really like what's going on, I think,
Okay,
in Pinkerton. In Pinkerton's Ghosts, what we're trying to express about the world and society is that we are in a society that isn't necessarily destroyed, but is at war with itself. You have people like Vox Day who think, oh, we're going to see some sort of collapse in 2035. Well, the truth is that Vox Day's predictions are kind of hit and miss. I would say from me paying attention to them, he tends to be like 50%. He has been fairly consistent about this one for a while. However, I have a funny feeling, and you can see if I'm right about this, but whatever happens in 2035, or whatever it was, like 2034 or something like that, I have a feeling that Vox is just going to recast whatever happens as proof that he was right, and it doesn't matter what it really is.
Shrug.
Yeah. This is not. We love Vox here. We're all Vox fans.
Yeah.
Yes.
The greatest.
The GOAT.
Yep.
I say that. So I make this prediction with all due respect. With that said, I have a feeling that we're just going to see this as not. I'm trying to think of the word. I don't think it's going to go the way he thinks it will go.
Or any of us. It's not even that.
Or any of us. Yeah. Or me. Or you.
Yeah.
I have no. Yeah. With that said, we live in interesting times, but at the same time, and this is how, and this will be my last word on the subject. At the same time, we do and we don't, right? We live in the eternal. It's the eternal Jeremiah, right? Jeremiah laments because he either lives in a society that is woebegone and forgotten, or he lives in a society that is doing well and has thus forgotten God in their great wealth and happiness, right?
There's no in between, by the way.
There is no in between. No, there isn't. It's the eternal Jeremiah, right?
It's that
we live in interesting times. However, if we had lived in a quote unquote better time, then we would have been in the other spot of the Jeremiah, right? Of hey, your problem. We have another problem. Things are going really well. We've forgotten God because that's why we're in this state. So there is no, as Gandalf says, there is no right time. We can only do what we have with the time we are we can only do what we can with the time we're given, right?
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is, like, nobody wants to hear this, and it's not really the right thing to say per se, but people have been in this situation before. But I'm going to go a step further than that. The very good situation our previous generations were in, that was unusual. We are the norm, right?
Yep.
We're the norm. This is where this is just what society is normally like. Hostile, indifferent, and the enemy of the Christian.
Yep.
We reform it, we preserve it, and we say, "Come, Lord Jesus."
Yep.
Amen.
Yep. I'm good. I'm done. I'll just make a comment that we don't really have a prediction for the thing. We just feel it's I think if there is a reformation, a quote unquote, not like reformation like German Reformation, but like if there's a reform of government under, say, Trump and JD Vance, it'll breathe some life and into it. But quite frankly, it's if I were to bet on anybody, I would bet on Vox over everyone else.
I will say this: a 50% correct prediction rate is better than most people.
Absolutely.
I mean, John was very much, and to John's credit, he has admitted his incorrectness on this point. John's prediction was that Trump would totally not be back in office for a second term. Now, as people say, oh, well, he was, but John was like, no, that's not. I did not predict he would win re-election. I predicted he would not leave office. That they would admit the fraud and he would stay in, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that was such a surreal time because, like, I remember reading John's blog and being like, "This is," and even Vox's blog, by the way, because he was doing the same thing, though not as explicitly and with a little bit less copium and more hopium, uh, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I was like, "You're all so obviously wrong. There is absolutely no way Trump retakes office." Like it was so frustrating because I'm like, this is so incredibly obvious to me that there is not a snowball's chance in hell that Trump is retaking office. I don't even know why you would think that. Like, do you not understand what a massive thing this would be on the world stage? It would be almost the equivalent of a coup that Trump would need to pull off in public in the United States of America in the year of our Lord 2025. He's not gonna do it. And then everybody's like, no, I think that the Supreme Court's gonna overturn it. And I'm like, you're all insane. No,
Yeah.
they're not. Uh like
And they didn't.
Nope.
And they didn't. So it's yeah.
But he's back. He's back.
There, I can't remember what movie that was like that, but yeah. Let's just go over the comments real quick. Carl says, "What up, nerds? What up, nerd? Sometime you guys need to get back to me about doing the Pinkerton's Ghost RPG thing.
Yeah.
I need to upload those, by the way, after censoring them. Love your guys' content. Thank you for the high quality storytelling. Found you guys from Voxdale. LOL. I think your assessment is accurate. Yeah, no, we love Vox. We love Vox. Like it's one of those things where unironically, like there's 3 people in this world I actually am scared to truly offend. And the first one is, of course, Fox Day. The second one is Milo Yiannopoulos, and the third one is Owen Benjamin.
Yes. Those are my 3.
Let me be real. Owen Benjamin would, create like a 5-minute routine that would leave you crying on the floor because, you like it's like the jester's privilege, except the jester has teeth. Fox Day, of course, even if he does notice you, it's just bad. You will be wrong. All right. And the third one, of course, Milo probably wouldn't even, give you a full word. All right. Not even a full sentence. He would just like put one letter in there. Like, and then like all of a sudden you'll just know what the criticism is. And then you'll just like die. You'll shrivel up. You'll it's just Ben, it's just the letter F.
I just saw Milo commented on. I had mentioned. I'm sorry. I know, but like I had mentioned with the Daily Wire thing with Matt Fradd. Like it's not really worth talking about. We'll wait and see what happens. Nothing's happened yet. He just joined. But anyway, point is, Matt went on the show, and then Andrew Klavan, who is a dispensationalist Jewish convert with a sodomite son, who he will not condemn as immoral. He makes a joke to Matt where he goes, "Now we've got more Catholics here than the Vatican and less gays or something." Now I understand the criticism, and it's like I guess kind of funny, but like, bro, you don't let a dispensationalist with a sodomite son make these jokes, right? Like you just don't. And I'm like, and I said something like, I don't understand why they didn't say it's not even hard. It's like, why do you even care? Does your son know you're homophobic? Like, I don't understand why this is a concern to you, Andrew. But then Milo commented on it, and hold on, I'm going to try and find this because it was something. Yeah. Clavin has some nerve making gay jokes when right now his firstborn is somewhere across town, bent double and squealing like a stuck pig underneath the Daily Wire's chief counsel. Spencer is like a son and heir, but with a cock up his ass.
Holy cow.
Which give up. Is kind of what I said, but also not. Not at all what I said.
That's
He's entirely correct, though. Like,
He's right. It's just I'd
he's
quit.
completely right, and they should have said something. Like, to be clear, I understand the joke. I even understand the criticism, but you do not let a dispensationalist lunatic with a fucking sodomite son make these comments to you. It's like, no, you don't get that right. Like, you don't get
Right.
that privilege. This is not right. Like,
Yes.
you do not have the moral high ground here to make these sorts of jokes.
Your son is a little too gay to make the moral high ground here, sir.
Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
unironically. Okay, yeah, but anyway, point is that that's why we fear Milo Yiannopoulos. Like, that's it. We're done.
yes.
All right? You have to understand. Like, you don't recover from a statement like that is 100% true and factual. Probably true and factual. Like, the sodomite
Oh,
thing's
it's true.
definitely real.
It's well known, like that Andrew Clavin's son is gay. He talked about it
Yeah,
on the interview we had with Matt Fradd, actually.
yeah. Well, I meant that specifically that, well, no, gays are promiscuous enough. I could believe that if the Daily Wire guy is homosexual, that they've had sex.
I'm pretty sure they said the Daily Wire's chief counsel. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the relationship. Yes.
Yeah. So it's
I'm
like,
pretty sure he's right.
yeah, so it's like, it's just like you're done. It's one of those things where it's like if somebody criticizes the Catholic Church for, the pedophile priest problem, and it's like, buddy, we checked your Reddit account. You're in Traps Anonymous NSFW. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Like it's just you're done. Like, there's no more, like, you can't.
Like, that's the thing too. Milo was abused by a priest, and he
Yeah.
happens to be Catholic, and Milo will 100% call the church out. He has done it.
Yes.
He's done it, frankly, far more brutally than Clavin did.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that's the thing. He understands. Like, no. I get to do it, right? I have earned that right. Like,
Yes.
you don't get to do shit. Shut your mouth. And he's correct. He's absolutely correct. And Frad should have said something.
Yep. Anyway, this is why you fear the man with a mouth like that. It's absolutely terrifying.
Vox
And
is just like, if Vox decides he wants to destroy you, he's going to destroy you. You're going to lose.
yep,
You're doomed.
yep.
Frankly, the only reason that Scalzi has not been destroyed is because, as funny as this sounds, Vox hasn't actually wanted to.
Yes. It's yes. Especially for someone like Scalzi, as unpleasant as they are.
Right. Scalzi's just an unpleasant loser. He's not somebody
Yeah.
who needs to be destroyed. Like, he's not important enough, frankly.
Yep. Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing. There's no one else on this world who I fear, but those three alone, um, as they have well earned. Anyway, so Pinkerton's Ghosts. We did have a question as to when we're getting a new episode. I'm going to be working on it the second I leave here. And what we're going to do is I'm probably going to have a shortened time for release on the first episode because it's short. I just had a cool horror idea, and it's not that long. But then we're going to do every other week public release situation. If you look at one of our episodes, we do have a subscribe star. That's the best way to support us. And Vox has pity on Scalzi, but not for Peterson. Yeah, no, like, so Scalzi's unpleasant, but he's fundamentally just a sci-fi guy. Peterson actively tries to influence the youth and may or may not be influenced by demons. I'm on the side of May. So yeah, but it's we will have new episodes of Pinkerton's Ghosts very soon. Friday will be a public release. Subscribers will get it Monday. One hopes. There's just one little thing I have to do with it and then get it audio adjusted and then send it back out. And then we're going to try and keep up a 2-week thing. I need to finish editing a story for Anthony. I also have 2 mega episodes coming out relatively soon. I'm writing the first one on stream. Writing the second one on stream, and the first one I have to record. And due to personal unfortunateness, I have the time for it. All right. I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you for 5 years of Pinkerton's Ghosts. It's been great. It's one of the best things I've done with myself in my life. And I hope to do more for you and better as well. That's the key here. The Faustian spirit is not extinguished. I believe God has given man as close to infinite potential as man can possibly handle. And that includes things like art. No fey enchanted bards. We sold no soul to the devil for unearthly writing power. We're just that good because God made us that good. And I want to thank you for joining us as we get better. Have a good night, and we'll see you next week, where we will, it's under most of our latest episodes, where we will probably discuss something more personal interest. I might get a guest. I don't know. I'll probably bring in David to talk monsters. That sounds